saca la pelota Rangers, era el empate, señoras y señores. Y ahora sale Roof, Kemar entre tres. Bien, Roof, que se anima desde muy lejos. That's not a goal. It's a golazo. Ni siquiera estaba en media cancha.
Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand Extra. This is your little bite-sized chunk that we like to do at the end of the week as a free show to all of our fellow Bears out there in podcast land. I'm very, very pleased to be saying I'm joined by the one and only Kev Armstrong. Kev, how are you today, my friend? Have you... well, let me ask you another question. How many times have you watched the Camar Roof goal?
Well, mate, I've had to turn it off to talk to yourself, but that's not a problem. I've watched it from multiple angles and in many different languages. It's a world-class strike from a very, very good player. So, it's a great week to be aware, Cammy, and I'm delighted to join you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. So, I think we'll jump straight into the standard, as Alec Ray would have called it last night, into the standard game. A team with a really decent European pedigree, Kev. I think that it's fair to say. Unbeaten at home in Europe in 6 years, with some decent teams visiting them at that time, including Arsenal, Seville, who, veterans of the Europa League. It's almost as if it's their tournament and people have to win it off of them. Standard or no mugs, right? And let's call it out front and centre. We put out, in my opinion, a very, very strong team that we could go and take to task on them. The big changes, I think, could really be said around Stephen Davis dropped out, probably just to help give him a little bit of breathing space. Liam Balogun comes in for Phil Hollander, who was just recovering from a slight knock. And Yanis Hadji comes in, which, again, I think, Kev, given his experience of playing in Belgium, I think made sense to me. I think that tactically, I think the manager got it absolutely spot on with the start lineup. I was not going to say I was confident when I saw it, because I'm never confident in getting into these European games, but it was absolutely the right team to start with, I feel.
It's something that we're going to have to learn to live with, Cammy. We're quite a force in Europe now, certainly at this level. It's not something that we've been brought up with. In the 90s, I think we had one or two flashes one season, but since Gerrard's come in, he's turned us around in Europe. And I said on the Chief Exec show on our Patreon site last night that I don't think many teams would have been looking at pot 3 and saying, I fancy Rangers, because we'll be able to take something off of them. The management team got it spot on, and I think it's a real testament to the way they've built this squad that we made changes at centre half. We were forced into a change at left back. We made changes in the midfield, and it didn't disrupt our rhythm. It just shows you what a good place this squad's in. Certainly from back to middle, we've been doing really, really well last couple of weeks. Up front could be a wee bit better if we've been hypercritical, but while we're winning games, while we're not conceding goals, we really need quite a good look to find something to moan about, I think.
Yeah, and listen, do you know what? If we can find something to moan about, we'll find it. However, the game I thought started quite brightly. We could see that there was definitely a step up in class in terms of our opponent. And I think when you're playing at this stage, Kev, the real function here has to be able to try and look after the ball, and when you're presented with opportunities to do it, because unlike what we're used to domestically, we're going to get more space, we're going to get more opportunity. Teams will not sit in. Liege have got talent, and throughout their team, and certainly throughout their squad as well. Although there were some COVID impact, we could see kind of gambits of the game that there was definitely going to be a good back and forth between the two. Then, after a fairly decent start and a couple of opportunities presented themselves, it's the 3 words that we love to hear: penalty to Rangers. Kev, I'm a referee, as you know. I'm not, a huge fan of when it's, you would want to say ball to hand or whatever, and the natural silhouette and all of that garbage. That wasn't last night. Last night, I think, was a pretty clear handball, and I think the referee called it spot on. And to do that within that opening phase of the game, I felt was a brave decision, the right decision. and upsets James Tavernier. I don't have any hesitancy now in him taking penalties. I know that he's went through a rough spell previously, but he slotted that away perfectly last night.
He did, and I think we were all pretty confident. Like you said, we've had a rough patch, not just Tav, but other penalty takers. The tail end of last year and into the early part of this year, I think went through 3 or 4 kickers, but we've come back to Tav, and he's certainly back on form with them. And with you, it's a Stonewall penalty kick. You can tell by the way the players reacted, and I think every Rangers player round about that boy that handled it, that arm went up immediately. I know what you mean about these newfangled rules with silhouettes and stuff like that, but no, if your arm's that far outstretched and it's blocking the ball from where it's going, it's a penalty kick. And the keeper, to be fair to him, keeper guessed right and he got a hand on it, but it's a wonderful penalty from Tav. He's always been good at penalty kicks, but just sometimes he over clips them, and I think the majority of them have been hitting the post and stuff like that, as opposed to keeper saving them, because he does tend to get them right in the corner. So, yep, it's great to have him in the form he's in just now. He's definitely leading by example, and he's not the only one. The team that stepped up in recent weeks, the full defence, goalkeepers, midfield, they've all been excellent.
Well, there's a few things that happened before the tail end of the first half. So one of them has to be kept, that the heavens opened and the rain started coming down in absolute buckets. It wouldn't take its toll until probably later on in the game. However, as we were approaching the halfway mark, about 40 minutes in, we've seen Borna have to go off to probably deal with a slight knock that he might have taken, a slight muscular injury that we're hoping won't be too much. The management team said today, the manager was in the press conference today and said that there wasn't too much of a concern around that. But he had to go off. Calvin Bassey came on. And I do want to talk to you a little bit, as we mentioned there, in terms of the squad in just a wee while. Rangers also had to kind of deal with a little bit of a kind of onslaught from Liège at this point, where they'd hit the bar once legitimately, once illegitimately. The one that was the first one, Kev, I think that, it's a great header. There's some dubiety as to whether or not McGregor gets a touch on it. I don't think he does, if I'm being honest. He's certainly not shy of a wonder save as our Allen. However, he doesn't get a touch on it, in my opinion. It hits off the bar. And I think a timely reminder to us that we're facing decent opposition here. We can't just simply relax. We can't take our foot off the gas. But if we needed one, that was the reminder. The second one, for me, it's again another handball. It hits off him. He then gets the header on target, which hits the bar and then comes out again as well. At this point, I think that half-time came at a good time for us just to be able to say, look, we're absolutely in control, but if you take your focus off, you're going to have problems and this team can hurt you.
Exactly, and I think that would have been the message from the management team. It would have been, look, you're doing well, you're creating space, you're creating chances, but anything less than your best here, this team will hurt you. They were very good at shifting the ball, and as soon as Bassey came on, you've seen him quite rightly, and I would love us to do that if you've got a rookie player coming on in a European tie, away from home in poor conditions, go at him, see what he's got. The big man stood up to the challenge, and fair play to him, he was absolutely brilliant when he came on. But it's the message is there. It's a case of this team they're no mugs. As you round off the teams that they've taken points off and they've beaten and their home record and take everything into account, this is no mugs that we beat last night. And you're right, they were just playing their way into the game. They were coming more and more into it, and like you said, half time was an absolute perfect time for us. Get them in, get them talked to, get them a wee break from because I think we were under a wee bit of pressure at that time, and the break just settled us down again, and then we started playing our game again for the second half kicked off.
And I think the weather at this point, we started getting into the second half, Kev. I mean, there was a couple of chances being created. Alfie, it felt a little bit to me was, I don't want to say he was cutting a frustrated figure in terms of he wasn't contributing, because I think he was, right? I think he needs a goal. I think we all know that. But I think that there's times when he's coming back, some of his link-up play can be really good. Sometimes it can be found a little bit wanting. I do feel for him at the moment in terms of maybe just the fortune he's had. But one thing I do want to talk to you about just before we come on to where we've seen some of those subs and some of those changes, because you are, our preview expert. from our Patreon network. And I just want to kind of come back to something that you were saying, and I think something that a couple of the guys have spoken about already in terms of the shows that you did last night. Was there was a lot of, for me, pinging the ball sideways, back and forth across the park, because we know that Rangers, if the ball is on one side of the park with the opposition, will try to press that down and to try and hunt somewhat in a pack or in a group to be able to do that. So the quickest way to alleviate that is to ping the ball to the other side of the park, and then all of a sudden Rangers have then got to shift over. They've then got to try and move en masse to be able to try and squeeze that. I thought Liege tried to do that last night, but they didn't have a lot of success, because when the receiver got the ball, I didn't feel as if he tried to penetrate with it too much. He didn't try and move forward with it, which is what you're kind of thinking, that the whole point of being able to do that would have worked if they were running forwards as soon as they've received the ball and getting into like our final third, and then being able to try and get the crosses into the box or hurt us in some way. I just don't know if that game plan worked for them last night.
No, you're right. You can't really think of too many occasions where Tav, Borna or Bassey was sort of left exposed one-on-one. Whether that was them not taking advantage of the quick switches they were making, or whether it was just us being so fluid and knowing this system, and with a great workout with it, obviously coming up against a better standard of opposition at the other end of the city last week. And we've just continued that, because the defensive unit, Kamara, has really been excellent in assisting with that. Ryan Jack came back in last night and doesn't look as if he's missed a beat. I'm one of these people that's rather critical of Jack and Kamara being in the same team when we're playing at home against Livingston, for example. It will be on Sunday. But for these European games, they're brilliant, because they take the ball, they cover their defenders, they cover their wing backs, and they're absolutely ideal for that. And I think it was a mixture of them not really capitalising on the few occasions they got the switch on, and us just being very, very well drilled at this system. And that might be something we spoke a bit about in the previous show, where the last few seasons Gerrard hasn't had much time on the training field. Obviously with COVID it wasn't ideal pre-season in the training field, but we've certainly had a lot more time in the training field this year, and you just wonder if we're starting to reap the rewards of that.
Well, the Jack Kamara combination, you touched on this, so let's just look at that for just a second. I think that there's definitely something there where, I suppose, really for want of a better terminology, has it matured in your eyes? Like, have we went through that kind of formation period where, they have to get used to playing together, been able to try and do that? I think Glenn Kamara has certainly upped his game somewhat. I think Ryan Jack, especially with his international appearances, have certainly moved into another level at this point in time. I think you've hit the nail on the head when you said he's not really missed a beat in terms of coming back into it, because he's played a lot of games within the last 2 to 3 weeks. Let's not forget that. But it just feels to me as if that dynamic between those two has kind of worked. And now we're not, you do a substitute or bringing in Davis or Arfield, or more recently Joe Aribo, who obviously came on last night. Those two had to work better together. And I don't mean that they had to work as in they weren't producing, but there was sometimes where there was a gap because of those two. And maybe, they kind of like bumped into each other a little bit. They were kind of trying to do the same thing a couple of times, and it wasn't really working. It felt too much like an overlap. Has that now, in your eyes, improved?
Certainly in Europe. I don't know, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head the last time we played those two in domestic competition together, because obviously we've had Stephen Davis there. And I personally just feel it works better with one or the other at home. I mean, if we can go to Parkhead last week with Davis and Kamara, then I don't think there's any reason to play both of them, Jack and Kamara, against the Didier teams. I think it works well with one of the more defensive midfielders, we'll call Jack and Kamara, and one of the more quarterbacky midfielders, if that's a term I've just totally made up there, and like Davis, who will move the ball forward quickly. Jack and Kamara are more like keep the ball, recycle it, and move it forward maybe a wee bit slower, as where Davis is head up, right, how are we springing this attack? Am I going left? Am I going forward? Am I going right? And it'll be interesting to see how Zungu fits into that when he's fit. You mentioned Joe Aribo, who's another one that can carry the ball forward. And I think we're in a really strong position in the middle of the park now, because if you look at the three positions we've got, I think you've either got Jack or Kamara, you've either got Davis or Zungu, and then you've got Arfield or Aribo. And I mean, honestly, Cammy, when was the last time we had such a strong squad? I honestly can't remember that when you can rotate your squad, and that is the word rotate. It's not like, oh no, we've got the fear he's coming in and he's got to play in that position. He can play there like a Flanagan. He can play there. He can play there, but it's not his position. But we're just such a strong position just now, and it's wonderful to see.
Well, in terms of the squad, we mentioned earlier on Alfredo Morelos. We know that he's maybe having a bit of a kind of tough time with it in terms of finishing chances. He did have a couple, which I think for me last night, Kev, in goal scoring form, he finishes without any real problem. He had a chance in the first half, a chance in the second. Now, in terms of the squad, we've probably seen some of these players maybe not being at their absolute tip top. And I don't think Alfie's necessarily performing really badly. He does need goals. He's a striker. It feeds him. We understand that. But last night, we probably made some pretty instrumental changes in terms of where that sits. Balogun comes in for Phil Hollander. I don't think we looked any different. It's quality replacing quality. Barisic has to go off injured. We bring in Calvin Bassey. Alfie not having the best of games. Not able to convert, but we bring on Kemar Roof. And so to your point, we've got an existing group of players and we've brought in players who we can do a degree of a changeover with. But I think the squad in itself is now stepping up in that level of quality. That, as you say, there's not too much of a gap when we do suffer an injury or, there's suspension or whatever else as well. And literally from back to front, we've almost man for man had either an improvement of an existing player or existing player on the sidelines in the periphery, or alternatively we brought in a signing who looks, absolute class. Bassey, I thought last night, and I cannot praise the boy enough. We know that Borna is a real asset to the team. He's got a fantastic cross on him. His distribution's absolutely phenomenal. Bassey, a slightly different type of player. He's certainly far bulkier. He looks like he's 8'2" Borna Barisic. But then at the same point, I thought last night, I thought he was tremendous, Kev. I thought, for me personally, he was man of the match. The reason being is because he came into a European stage and he did not look out of place. That is not an easy thing to do. It's exceptionally difficult. But when you see him coming in and you see him stepping into Borna's shoes, I think now that we've got a real reliance that we don't have to scramble for a left back like we've had to do in recent seasons. I thought it was absolutely tremendous last night, Calvin Bassey. I cannot praise him highly enough.
No, it was wonderful when he came on. I think the couple of duels that he had early on that he won right away will certainly fill him with confidence. And he's not shy about getting in the opposition box. He might not be a Borna style whipping wonderful deliveries in from far and wide. We've not seen it yet, but every game he's come on as a sub, he's been rampaging up and he's been almost Tav-esque and been in the opposition box. And again, come back to the squad, it shows you how well we can manage people now. For like Borna, if he's even doubtful, put him on the bench for Sunday or just leave him out altogether. We've seen it with Joe Rebo. And Ryan Jack. We've not had to rush these players back now because we've got people that can come in and play the position. It's really a wonderful position to be in. But no, Bassey was brilliant last night, and on a wet Thursday evening, I don't think I would fancy going in for a 50-50 with Bassey. I think I would let him take the ball and then just try and get it off him afterwards, because he's a big physical unit of a lad, and it turns out he's quite a decent football player as well.
And do you know what? He's athletic. For a guy his size, he can absolutely shift. I think he can move. You're right, he's got loads of energy with it. But even given the appalling conditions that he was really chucked into last night, I mean, I've watched the Kemar Roof goal with the Titanic music, and I think the only difference is there was fucking less water in that movie than there was in that part last night. But the thing is, though, that even within that, he doesn't, because he looks so big, you could almost give him the discredit of being clumsy. But he's not. He's athletic. He's good in his feet. He can move forward. He adapted to those conditions and that playing surface really, really well last night. And I just thought he was absolutely tremendous. Where are you at with Alfie? Are you concerned? Is it just the boy will come good again? Is it just does he need time? Would you change him over for Sunday? What's your thoughts?
Again, I said last night on the Chief Exec show with James that I think he's clearly going through a rough patch, but on the other side of that, he's played a lot of games. He's been away with Colombia. He came back and done a shift last week. The one area we have sort of struggled for fitness has been the centre forward. Like you said, he's still contributing, but he is going through a wee rough patch. So it wouldn't surprise me if Kemar Roofe starts up front on Sunday. And I think even if we get a good hour out of Roofe and then introduce Alfie, we've been here before with other players in the squad. We've seen Tav had a down period. We've seen Ryan Kent have a down period. As long as we don't get 5 or 6 players having a down period, we'll be all right. I think there's still lots more to come from Alfie. I don't think too many people thought he would still be here. I think it's quite a bonus that he is. And if we can give him a wee rest on Sunday, give him a 20 minutes or something coming off the bench, hopefully maybe get a goal with Livingston, or obviously we hope a couple of goals down at that point. Because he's strange because, like you said, he had a couple of shots last night, or a couple of chances. One, he should have taken a shot and he passed to Scott Arfield, which is not the Alfredo we know, because usually when Alfie goes through a rough patch, he starts hitting shots from everywhere and anywhere, just trying to get a goal. But then on the other side of that, he was doing back heels and he back-heeled a wonderful ball through. I can't remember who. I think it may have been Arfield that he back-heeled it through to. And it's so you're still getting stuff from him, but it's just maybe not consistent as we would like it to be. But no, still lots more to come from Alfie. And come the next season, I think he will still be away for big money. But he just maybe needs a wee rest. But that's understandable. So he's played for us, he's played for Colombia, and he's really been carrying the workload for us for the first part of the season.
Now we've spoken about it, so we've got to revisit it, right? We simply can't, ignore it. Kev, I didn't celebrate the Kemar Roofe goal last night. That's my honest answer. I did not celebrate it. I just simply sat with my jaw open, and I'll use certain expletives which I will not repeat in the show. I was in shock. I didn't even register what I was like. Oh my God, what has he done? And then it went in, and then I just went crazy around my living room. But it was just, it was magnificent. I think, the manager has come out and said, and he said in today's press conference, he's talked about Alonso, Suarez, Rooney. He's seen guys score similar goals to that. But playing professionally since 1998, that's the best goal he's ever seen live. And I don't know. I've got to praise Kemar Roofe because he must be walking about with a tripod at the moment. But when an icon like Steven Gerrard says that about your goal, my God, it wouldn't go down for weeks. That's all I'm saying. However, you've got to say that what a magnificent piece of skill, and you can't underestimate it by saying it was just a great hit. Longest goal scored, by the way, with furthest distance in Europa League history. But it wasn't just the finish. It was the beating the 4 or 5 players that he had to do so from pretty much his own box in order to be able to make it happen. At first, I thought he was hitting into the corner. My God, how little did I know until the camera then panned round to the left.
Yeah, you're right, because it's not even as if he just dribbled round the opponents. There was 2 or 3 of them were right physical challenges. And for a guy who just come back from injury, playing in that pitch and those conditions, it's quite easily for him to sort of shirk out of that, but no, he carried on. He beat the first couple, and then just when he knocks it round the outside of I think it was the centre back or left back, you see him just have that wee look up, because I think you're right. Had it been the goalkeeper standing on his line, I think he would have maybe just bloated it up to maybe their sort of left back area and done a rugby thing or just play for the yards. But no, he's seen him off his line and he's thought, I'm just going to have a hit of this, and it's an exquisite finish. And I think everyone this side of BBC Scotland was in love with the goal. I've seen WWE wrestlers, I've seen Piers Morgan, I've seen Gary Lineker all retweeting it. It's the goal scene around the world right now, and it's it can only be good for Rangers' reputation. I think I put out on social media last night that's probably our best European goal since Whittaker's versus Lisbon. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Well, in both goals, I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, wait, hang on. And then, obviously, Whittaker's one, my immediate thought is pass the ball. In Roofe's one, I was like, just run with it to the corner. What the hell are you doing? But yeah, absolutely tremendous. And you say he absolutely deserves all the plaudits with it. I've heard, idiots and morons turn around and say, oh, it was a fluke and blah, blah. Do you know how you know it's not a fluke? And you just nailed it perfectly, Kev. When he looks up, when he does that cursory glance, then he sees where the keeper is, and then, like all strikers, it's like their thought process, and it's the first thing that comes into their head. Yeah, so we look up, and then just, fires it with tremendous accuracy. I just thought it was absolutely brilliant, and Then the kind of aftermath, we finished up 2-0. We've done a really professional, consummate job away to a very, very difficult opponent. And then we had a wee, to use a wee Scottish phrase, a wee stushy right at the end, where there was a couple of guys come over and started taking it a little bit to Ruth. Obviously, no, he's played with Anderlecht before. There was some sort of thing being said about the fact that, he did like an A and like an L's party celebrations. But my understanding, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, is that he's done this. It's something potentially to do with his kids or something like that. People were thinking that he was winding up, because there was 3,700 Liege fans and quite a few Bears, I might add. But there was fans in the stadium last night, and people thought he was winding them up, and certainly the Liège staff were not happy with it. I don't know the celebration, right? I don't know what the kind of the true root of it is, but they were not happy, and they were certainly gunning for him.
They were. I think it's an easy jump to make. I think had somebody scored against us and, I don't know, make a C gesture and maybe think they were a Celtic fan, but it's something he's done since his early days in football. I've heard, I was speaking to an Aston Villa fan this morning, and he said it's something to do with charity or something. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it's certainly not anything to do with Anderlecht. But they were probably just annoyed because they took a doing on their own pitch for the first time in, was it 6 years or something like that?
Yeah.
So they're quite right to be annoyed. Nobody likes to be beaten on their own pitch, and if again just before it they'd missed a glorious opportunity down to the conditions. Remember the ball went past Tav, and their guy in the left wing was about to try and trap it, and they couldn't trap it because of the conditions.
It skited right under his foot. Yeah, that's right. I think it was the number 7. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
So it's the thin margins we always talk about in football, and then to get that. To be fair, remember the goalie had a sore leg, so it maybe wasn't as good as we all thought, because he had a wee pull.
It's the pretending that you've got cramp. And listen, we've all done it. When you look at the ground, when you've hit a complete fresh air shot and you've just looked for a divot that isn't there. We've all done it. Do you know what I mean? And fair play to the keeper for trying to do it. One thing that I do want to talk about, though, just on that aftermath, and I think it was all handbags, right? There was nothing appears to have kind of come out of the back of it. But there is one thing that I want to just call out with that as well, Kev. I think that in the TV pictures last night, you saw the coach, I don't know who it was, right? Some guy from the Liège bench, kind of head to head with Ruth. At this point, Al McGregor's providing him some advice about maybe removing himself from the situation. Again, I won't use the expletives that I think that Mr. McGregor used. Tav is straight over. I think Ryan Jack was in there as well. Then the camera kind of panned back to the stand, and then you saw them all kind of coming off. Now, this is going to sound a bit archaic, right? And I'm not necessarily saying everyone should just get involved into their army and all the rest of it. Of course not, right? But a bit more culture than that nowadays. But what I absolutely loved was everybody was in it. So we had the coaches in there. Culshaw, I think, was trying to call one of them out, was going to battle them. McAllister was offering a couple of them out. There was players in there. Alfredo was in there. Even though obviously he was a sub at this point. We had guys who are in there now. Yeah, we don't want to see this. This is elite European football. We don't want to see all this kind of crap at the end of the game. And yeah, you can turn around and say that Liège were a bit sore at what happened. Totally get all of that. But there's also a point here where I'm thinking, fucking good, get stuck into them and do it as a team, do it as a group. And I don't think we've seen that for a very long time. And this is what I enjoy seeing about this group of players and staff, that everybody's in it together. And if you have a go at one of us, you have a go at the rest of us. And we've had some formidable teams in our history, Kev, and that has been the nucleus of it, of that togetherness, that we're not just leaving people, getting battered or getting, having players stuck into them and all that kind of stuff. No, if you have a go at one of us, the rest of us are going to stand up for our colleague. And I think that's absolutely tremendous.
It is, and it's not just in the fight scenes that we're seeing this. We're seeing this when we celebrate goals. It's a team by the very definition of the word. I don't think we've got individuals here. I think we've got a team, and you're right. It's wonderful to see, because we don't like seeing. Well, we do. Everybody loves a ram at football, don't they? Oh, fight, and that's usually when my missus picks up and starts watching when there's a fight on the. I thought we might have got a fight last weekend, but no, it was the Belgians that decided to come ahead. Of all
people, if you said who you're going to have a fight with, Celtic or the Belgians, who would have honestly picked the Belgians?
But no, you're right what you say. Everyone's in there. It's an all for one and one for all sort of attitude. And again, it's brilliant because Every sort of season, every week that passes, we just seem to be getting more and more back to the Rangers that we were brought up with, of winning games and fighting together. And they'll be organising a good drinking session now if they go back to the 90s. But it's it's brilliant. And of course, you can't have a stramash, as the old Scottish word goes, without Alfredo in there, can you?
I know, absolutely brilliant. So, Liège put to bed. We move on. The team came back last night, landed back in Scotland late last night, early this morning. And as I mentioned beforehand, manager was at the press conference today with Scott Arfield. We are assessing what's happening with Borna Barisic's injury. We're hoping that it's not going to be too long, and we'll assess that over the coming days. What I'm scared about, Kev, is that we've heard that already, and it turns out that they're out for like a month and a half. So we'll just have to play that one by ear. We'll just have to see what it is. I have no faith any longer in the old 7 to 10 days. But we've already mentioned we've got Calvin Bassey in there, so I would imagine he'll start against Livingston. There's an element in today's press conference where there's a very much an idea of, look, we had to come back last night, we've trained this morning, we've unpacked last night's performance, we've talked about that, we've done all that kind of stuff. We now move on to Livingston. And whilst I appreciate that, there's a little bit of that kind of textbook answer of, we move on to the next game and blah, 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 what have you. I can totally feel it from the press conference today. I think that we have readjusted our focus now back to domestic duties, back to the responsibilities of championing for the league and all that kind of stuff. And I think that, Livingston at home on Sunday, it's not going to be an easy game. I hope I'm proven wrong with that and it turns into, an absolute 6-0 whitewash. But Livingston not playing brilliantly. They could be doing a little bit better. Away from home, they try and get whatever they can because they're a tough team to beat at Almond Vale or the Tony Macaroni Arena or whatever the hell it's called this week. But they're still a tough team, and they're still a team that we have to be able to be organised to be able to try and beat. And I think that the other thing as well with that, Kev, is we can do this, but we can do this from a perspective of we can make the job easier for ourselves if we've got the right attitude from minute one. And we go out and we be a bit ruthless and we be a bit, right, let's go for the throat. Let's not sit back or take it easy or my legs are a bit sore. But it's not, let's go and let's proper start it off right from kickoff.
It is. We don't really look that far back to the last time Livingston took points off us. One of the only two teams to do so far in this league campaign. I went back and watched the highlights of that game, and it was the bad side of this Rangers team that we know they've got, where we whip balls in from anywhere. They've got 3 or 4 big giants at the back way. Then it's the side-to-side passing and just an absolute terrible performance when we played them last. But we're in a much better place now, I think. We're confidence throughout the squad, but not overconfidence. I think the fact that we beat them last weekend, but then we're right in a big European game, so we done it. We celebrated that night. We move on, and this is the sort of way it has to be, that if we want to go back to winning leagues, we can't pat ourselves in the back for too long. There's another big game just around the corner, and right now Livingston is the biggest game of our season because it's the next game. Even last year, you go back to last year, there was only 1 or 2 goals in it. They were very tricky for us to play against. We didn't like going there in the plastic pitch. We didn't like it when they sat back against us. So it will be a challenge. We've obviously got a much better team. We've got a much better standard player than Livingston, but they're really organised. They obviously lost their main attacking threat. They get good money for Dykes when they went down south. They've not really replaced them. There's a team that's not really caused us too much defensive problems, but while a game is 0-0 or 1-0, we know all too well that it just takes one chance and then you're behind, and it's even harder to score 2 goals against them than it is 1. So it's something that we should, and we're more than capable of winning, and winning comfortably. An ideal world, I think we'd like to rotate a few players, get some minutes into the legs of the players like Aribo. Bassey would probably get most of the game. People like Hadji, people like Roof, who've not played an awful lot of football lately, and then hopefully make some changes on the hour mark and go again for next week, because the European games are obviously condensed this season. So it will be a case of bang, bang, bang and move on to the next one. But no challenge, not more than capable of overcoming, and let's just hope for a good performance, a couple of goals and minutes in the legs of the players that need it.
And that's it. And I think that's the most important thing is using that squad, using the rotation, using the opportunity to be able to try and give players a rest as and when they need it. Because, I mean, Kev, we've played in surfaces like they had to go through on last night, and it takes out of you. You know, you're talking about basically mud. That's what you're running in. Really tough. And again, like you say, last night when I was watching that and that weather properly started, what I was really concerned about was somebody getting an injury. And it's so easy that when you've got to turn, to stop quickly, to adjust, because the ball develops a mind of its own. It just stops dead in its tracks in some instances of it. I was worried about a pull or something happening. Whereas I think everyone came out of it okay. We've not heard any other injury news apart from that. But if we've got the opportunity to rotate, we absolutely should take advantage of it. The burning question is, who would you start in the middle of up front on Sunday?
I would give Roof the first hour, all things going well, or maybe even Roof on the right and Big Itten, because Big Itten needs some game time. I'd put Alfie on the bench, so I'd maybe go with Itten up front and Roof out wide. I know the manager says that he won't just fling Roof back in after that goal, but I think it's hard not to start him because he'll be absolutely flying.
Yep, I think that's fair. I think that, the point you made earlier on, maybe if we give Alfie some time back on the park when we've got a healthy lead, it doesn't rely back on him, and give him the space and the freedom to be able to do that, I think would definitely help. But I've got to agree with you. I would go with Ruth, not just because of the goal, but as we've mentioned before, his awareness, what he's doing. The guy's a very, very talented football player. He's had injury issues, which have somewhat given him a bit of a stop-start to his time at Rangers. But now, on the assumption that he can come in and he can deliver that, he'll be choking to be able to get onto the park. So he'll definitely want it. And I think that in terms of where we've got some other players that we can bring as a bit of a rest, would you look to be able to maybe bring Brandon Barker in? Ryan Kent has played a lot of games. He hasn't had the opportunity for a rest like Yanis Hadji has. How would you feel that maybe Kent should get a wee bit of a rest? Because Lech Poznan next week, we're back into European action, so it's games are coming thick and fast.
My worry for Kent is I think Kent's like Alfie that way, where he just absolutely loves playing football. He's not one of these wingers that gets a kick and goes out the game. Barker for me is more of a runner. And I know that sounds strange, but I think Kent's better close control, beating a man, getting a shot off, getting a chance created. One that might come in, I reckon, is maybe Jordan Jones, because we know he's not in the European squad. He done very well against Motherwell last time out. And then I think he did a game at Ibrox after that where he was okay. So he's one that might come into the manager's thinking. Kent, I think, will start. I think he's one of those go-to guys for the manager up there with Tav and Goldson, where they're on the team sheet. They're not the first names. They're on the team sheet unless they're injured, which is fair enough because they've been brilliant this season. The three of them, they've been outstanding. Barker, I just think Barker maybe struggles a wee bit when he's not got that wee bit of space to run into. I think he might be better suited for like away games or these European ties when teams do actually come out and, dare I say it, try and have a shot at goal. I know that's not a common thing now for Rangers to concede a shot at goal, never mind a goal, but no, I think Jones might make an appearance. If he's not starting, I think Jones might be on the bench, but then we know the manager does love Barker, so again, it wouldn't surprise me if Barker plays, but again, it's just the options we've got, Cammy. We're not sitting here going, oh, we know who this will be. There's real options there, whether the manager wants to change it, whether he feels he needs to change it, or whether he just wants to rest some players, but the options are brilliant, a brilliant thing to have.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Well, now that you've done all that, Kev, you'll be able to tell me accurately what the score will be and the goal scorers.
Goal scorers. Well, Goldson's got his allotted goals for the season, hasn't he? So,
no, but let's face it, it's harder opposition this week. So maybe Goldson, it's a bit tough to ask him to play that when there's such a step up in class from last week.
Well, it is, it's a wee bit more. People might mark him this week and stuff like that. I think it'll be the new. Remember back in the 90s, the 1-0 to the Arsenal chant. I think 2-0 to the Rangers might be the new chant, and I'll go with 2-0, and I'll go with Arfield and Roof getting the goals.
Okay, I'll be Mr. Optimistic, and I'll say 3-1, and I will go with I'm going to say Calvin Bassey. I love the boy. I'm going to get a Calvin Bassey tattoo, I think. But I'll say Calvin Bassey if I think he's going to start, because I think that's probably pretty likely. And I like the idea of Arfield. He's from West Lothian. There's a bit of kind of home connection there and all that stuff as well. So yeah, let's go with Arfield. And I'll say Ryan Kent, actually. If Kent plays, and I think he's got the opportunity to score, and I think he could definitely do that. So yes, thank you for that, Kev. It's been lovely to have you on Extra. Thank you for doing that, my friend. It's much appreciated.
Anytime, and those of you that like listen to my chat will be able to hear us again. The preview, as you know, Cammy, the preview likes to discuss this in slightly more depth and will run slightly longer than this show.
Yeah, just a little bit. We can start the preview now on our Patreon site, and it'll be finished just in time for kick-off at lunchtime on Sunday. Yes, as Kev says, the guys do a tremendous job of being able to do a preview show for us on our Patreon network. Please come over and have a wee look if you like it. It's a few bodies shy of 5,000 subscribing bears who listen to this kind of chat on a daily basis, with a whole host of shows, all things Rangers related. You have the preview, you've got daily updates, you have also got the time capsule, which reviews some of our older games with the wonderful Martin Ramsey. Our tactics squad, Adam Thornton, does a great job in that with our other friend Ali. And we even allow women on the pod as well. That's how modern men we are now, Kev. We even allow women on. I mean, honestly, such a diverse group we have. With Caroline and Marina, who do Blue Scarves On, and loads of other wee fun little pods that we do as well. So if you like the sound of that and you'd like to hear more, please jump over to patreon.com/heart and hand. The second last thing for me to do is to thank our executive producers in London, Mr. Mike Lee and Mr. Paul Myers. And the very last thing for me to do is wish you all a great weekend. Extra will be with you every week. We'll bookend the week with our free shows, the flagship on a Monday and Extra on a Thursday or Friday, depending on footballing schedules. It's great to have the opportunity to come and speak to you. So, as I say, please check out our Patreon link if you'd like to do that. But most importantly, have a great weekend. Everyone stay safe, and let's get 3 points on Sunday. Thanks all.